everybody. Welcome back to CN Live here on NRATV. And sometimes it's good to be under the headsets because while we were gone for our break, Kurt Schlichter and I just had a blast laughing and joking, and it's sunrise in America again. So let's see if we can kind of get you caught up to some of the things we were talking about on the break. Kurt, I'm gonna set up a premise for you. I'm not going to waste a whole lot of time with it, but here it goes. I think that if you look at back in the Peloponnesian Wars, the Greek Civil War, you had the Athenian culture, which was a culture of trade and music, and they were poets and they were playwrights and science, and they lived in a walled city and they didn't know much of what's going on. And on the other side was Sparta, which were just a bunch of warriors who had slaves to basically tend to their fields, and all they did was fight. And the Athenians and the Spartans went back and forth during this 30-year war, ended up destroying Greece. I maintain that the reason America is so exceptional and so remarkable is because we're able to be both Athenians and Spartans at the same time. We're able to do the science, we're able to do the music and the poetry and all of the movies and the music and all the rest. And at the same time, we're a bunch of butt-kicking, hard-ass sons of bees out there when things get serious. And I think for the last 8 years, these Athenian-type values have gotten completely out of balance, and Donald Trump is bringing Spartan-type values back, and the Athenians don't know what to do about it. But here's my first question for you, and I'll just tee you up. I noticed that Meryl Streep and the rest of these progressive Hollywood people are not ashamed or worried or embarrassed about telling our military how to fight a war, but I'm not aware that every single year there's a show watched by 40 million people where all of America's generals come out in tuxedos and tell Hollywood how to light a movie, and Meryl Streep's makeup was a little bit heavy on the eyelash liner last time, and I don't hear them talking about, the mood is not quite right. In other words, the Athenians can't stop telling the Spartans how to do their job, and the Spartans never tell the Athenians how to do their job. And if everybody would just kind of mind their own business, we'd be in much better shape.
Well, I think that's a great analogy, though in the United States, the ones with the helots, the slaves, those are the Athenians, and those are the illegal aliens. So yeah. With that little tweet, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of arrogance that one gets from not doing any constructive manual labor, from not actually building something, from living in an abstract way. I mean, if you're a construction guy like Donald Trump is, at the end of the day, you have a concrete result. There's a building, and it either falls over or you rent it out and make a lot of money.
Right.
Now, if you're a writer, 99 times out of 100, no one's ever going to read your stupid book. 99 times out of 100, no one's going to see your stupid movie.
Right.
And when they do, it's kind of a lark. It's kind of random.
Yes, and you can be wrong. If you're an actor and you give a terrible performance, you're a writer and you write a terrible article, in Hollywood, you'll probably get promoted. But at the very least, somebody will go, that wasn't very good. If you're an engineer and you make a mistake, people die. If you're a soldier and you make a mistake, people die. If you're a pilot and you make a mistake, people die. And the people who actually have to face the consequences of reality are almost universally conservative. And I think that says an awful lot.
Yeah, there's a lack of seriousness among many Americans today. And it didn't always happen to be that way. And especially if you look back 150 years ago in Britain, you had people who were artists and writers and talents who would also go off and serve Her Majesty. Look at Winston Churchill.
That's exactly right.
He was a war hero and a correspondent. He was a guy who wrote 1 million words, like 100 books. It's amazing. And these are quality books we still read today. I read his prose and I shake my head in despair.
Me too. He wrote for a living. Mm-hmm.
Yes. But he also did. He fought. He fought the Mahdi. He was
in the Boer War. He escaped from a Boer prison and headed out in a boxcar.
He led a battalion in the trenches. This is a guy who could do both. The perfect synthesis. And we had many Americans like that. And I think World War II was really the last time. We had 12 million Americans under arms, approximately 1 in 9, 1 in 10 Americans. We had a whole generation that came back. That both had that serious side. They had proven, either you had rooted out the Japanese in the Pacific, or you've been a paratrooper in Market Garden, or Kasserine Pass in North Africa. You've seen reality. You've done concrete things, and then you come back, and then you become a writer or a screenwriter. Look at Ernest Borgnine. He was on Navy ships. Then he came back, and then he could be in McHale's Navy, a comedian.
Yeah, exactly. And some cases it's not even like you went to the war, then you came back and became a star. You look at Jimmy Stewart, who's probably my
Yes,
favorite actor of all time. He's a
what
superb
a
actor,
hero.
really. He's at the top of his game when the war breaks out. He's at the absolute top of his game. No question you could make the case, no, we've got to keep him here. He's much more valuable to us as a propaganda asset and as a a spokesman for America. But it's not what he did. He signs up. I think he flew B-24 Liberators, and he flew in
B-24s.
combat a
Yes,
bunch
he
of
did.
times, and then he went back again in Korea, and he was an Air Force general, and
Yes.
it wasn't a ceremonial position. It wasn't a honorary generalship. He was a
No, he
patriot. He
actually
loved
flew
his
as
country.
he also flew as an observer over Vietnam as a two-star.
There you go.
I mean,
So
what a beautiful synthesis that says that you don't have to give up, that connection to the concrete world to be an artist as well.
that's
We're
right.
not. None of us say that you have to. None of us say that you even should. But when you
It's
have no balance, you're incomplete.
right,
Uh,
right.
and
And people
I
like I'm sorry.
oh, go on, go on.
I was going to say people like you who really do live in both of these circles. You served in the military overseas, and at the same time you're a writer and successful writer. Um, People like you and have the ability to explain to the left. The American people in the middle don't need any explaining to. They know what's real and what's not.
Yeah.
But somebody has to explain to these members of the media and the celebrityhood that the world that they live in fact, the world that they have to live in, if they can't do their jobs, if they don't live in a kind of a Disneyland that's surrounded by a force field, and that
Yes.
force field protects them from what's going on outside that force field, and that force field is maintained by men and women in law enforcement and in the military who often give their lives so that people like Meryl Streep can be in a society comfortable enough for her to do a good job as an actress. They should not only be thanking those men and respecting them. They don't have any business dismissing them and calling them a bunch of racists and homophobes and all the rest of it every opportunity they get.
And if they had had the privilege of serving, my units looked like some of the first gay people I met were in the Army.
Yeah.
This is not clothes, but we have very different backgrounds. We have true diversity.
That's right.
And coming together, we're the greatest fighting force in the history of mankind. The force that's done the most good, brought the most freedom, perpetuated the most justice of any organization. That's the United States military. And that's made up of people. And it doesn't matter where your grandfather came from, doesn't matter where you go on Sunday or Friday or Saturday, whenever you go. It's about being Americans and doing what Americans do. And to undercut that and to hate that, especially when you have no knowledge of that and no appreciation or understanding, I'm not sure whether I'm angry or just full of pity at these people.
That's well said. That's well said. America, as a country, as a nation, has been able to do what Greece couldn't do because it wasn't a nation, and that's fuse the Athenian and the Spartan together. If you look at something like Nazi Germany, that's all Spartan, no Athenian. It's just the brutality of mindless. They're not even soldiers. They're automatons. But even in World War II, American soldiers had such decency. They came into the war with such decency from having come from such a decent place that they not only were able to be kind to the people in the countries, but they had initiative and they were willing to take risks because they weren't going to be executed if they made a mistake. And that's why the U.S. Army was so unbelievably flexible and fast. And Patton's cutting across Germany, and he's going past towns. He says, "Ike, I want to take this town." Ike radios back, "George, you don't have time to take that town." George radios back, I took the town. Like, do you want me to give it back to them? That kind of thing is what makes America so effective and so kind at the same time.
And that's absolutely true. And I've been on both. I've been in combat zones and I've been on relief missions, and I've seen how wonderful American troops would be. In Kosovo, for instance, we had a problem. Our post office was getting overwhelmed by packages, and we looked into it. And it turns out the troops were calling back home to their families, their churches, their schools, and having them send supplies over so they could go out on patrol and give these Kosovar schools who had nothing supplies, books, pencils, notebooks. Our poor little post office is getting overwhelmed with these boxes. And that says a lot about our troops. It says a lot about the American people. And it's all good.
It is good. I remember when the Iraq War started, there were I was part of a drive to get together hundreds of soccer balls and jerseys and frisbees and send it to Iraqi kids and they could play with them. And that's the kind of people we are. And to hear people in Hollywood and the media say that we're Nazis is not only a disgrace to them, but it's a disgrace to the people actually killed by those brutes. Kurt, we could do this all day and the next day and the day after that. I'm having so much fun, but we got to go to a break and we're going to come. Yeah, we'll do it. We'll grab a beer. We'll sit far away from the rest of these idiots and losers, and we'll have everything figured out in about 10 or 15 minutes. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Great to see you again, pal. When we come back, we're going to be talking with Frank Wynn about guns and things related to guns. He's in the right place, God only knows, here on NRATV. I'm Bill Whittle from BillWhittle.com, sitting in for Collian Noir, and this is CN Live. We'll see you right after the break.